Preparing. Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to Solution Sunday, where the soul is the solution. I am so excited today to have two of my current students joining us. We have Catherine Mary Winkler and Nadine Shenda. And we are going to have a fabulous conversation this morning. And you're going to learn a little bit about Catherine and Nadine. And you're going to learn a little bit about what it's like to work with me and what my Aligning with Your Radiantly Healthy Self course is all about. And it's just going to be a super fun conversation. So ladies, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. I'm delighted.
It is a real pleasure.
Thanks, Lisa. Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's kind of dive right in. Let's start with a conversation about, what was it that you were each looking for? Why did you reach out to me? What were you looking for from this program? Just a little bit. Nadine, would you like to start?
Oh, okay. I hope I don't go too much on a tangent, but well, how it all started, of course, I was diagnosed with the horrific stage 4 metastatic breast cancer back in November. And in this horrible alarm, of course, much like in your story, Lisa, I was bombarded with, oh my gosh, Mayday, Mayday. You have to go through heavy chemo and radiation and not the surgery, stage 4. They just say, well, it's too late. So, and I wanted to run out of that office so fast. They told me my nails would fall out, my hair may or may not grow back, and I have 2 to 4% chance of living beyond 2 years. And so you go into a complete state of fight or flight, and everything in your body just goes like this. And I went into complete shock and trauma. Yeah. And it was actually my chiropractor who works on, I'll say his name, Dr. David Boynton in Cincinnati. He's wonderful. And once my this diagnosis came through, he said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And he says, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't have any clue. I'm terrified. And he said, put your hand on your heart. So I did. And he says, close your eyes. What do you think you need to do? And I said, close my eyes, took a deep breath. And what came to me was, you have to go away. So I told him that, and he said, I'll research for you and I'll tell you where to go. And then that weekend, he did go to Oasis for Hope in Tijuana, Mexico. It's all integrative and da-da-da. And so I did in January. It was a wonderful experience. Came back, felt good mentally. And then really felt awful after. I really thought, okay, I'm going. I'm a goner. And I remember telling my husband, I go, I don't think I'm going to make it. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't walk because I threw my back out, which, because the cancer was from the so-called cancer, was from the brain, where I had 7 lesions all the way down to my tailbone. Everything. It was like my spine fell like a house of cards, just crumbling down. Went from 5'4" to 5'1". And I was just in terrible pain. Anyway, and then from there, I was always a meditator since 2014 or so. And I thought I'd done all my processes. I'm thinking, how on earth did this happen to me? So I do this intensive oneness awakening weekend, where I have a dear, dear friend who does these awakening courses, and they do this thing called Miracle Diksha. I'll get to you, Lisa, how this all happens, because there's a story that brings me to that. And in the Miracle Diksha, you have to write down all what you want in this miracle. And I say, okay, I want this cancer gone. I want it gone. I want this out of me. I don't want da, 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 da. And there's this process that we go through. I've given miracle Diksha, and Diksha meaning blessing. You give a blessing, and every time we've done it with people, they always come true. So the fella that runs this thing is giving me this miracle Diksha, which it's just a transmission of energy. And he reads my paper, and you can see him going, oh. She wants a cure. So he goes up to this altar thing, and I could just see him going, oh, help me out here, divine, I need some help. But this man, Ryan Lucan, he places his hands on me, and I could feel this current of energy just coming through my body. And by the end of the weekend, I went from completely just barely able to move to I was dancing. We were doing a dancing part of the process, and I danced, and it hurt, but I danced. And I knew what this thing does with Miracle Diksha is the universe will help line up the things that need to come into your presence. And I was just, noodling on the internet, and Lisa, you came on, and you were, I don't know whether Solution Sundays, I really can't recall, or if you were being interviewed, or you were interviewing, but somehow you came on my feed, and algorithm. And I clicked and I listened, and everything was, the light bulbs were bing, 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 bing. And I go, I have to order this lady's book. So I ordered it. I ordered The Simplicity of Healing. I read the book. I do things in these stages before I jump into things. So I'm like, let me just read this book and see if this is the right thing to do. And so I read the book, and as I'm reading it, I'm going, yes, 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 yes. And I go, I have to get a hold of this woman, and I don't care. I'm going to do it. And I got a hold of you. I went on to the Connecting You to You website, and you had that, consultation, the free consultation. And I'm like, yes, give me that consultation. And I remember when you asked me these questions, like, are you right-handed? Is this cancer in your so-called cancer in your left breast? I keep saying so-called because through the course, you realize it's not what you think it is. And you asked me all these poignant questions that were like, check the box, check the box, check the yes, yes, yes. And I'm like, how does this lady know this? and everything just lined up and made so much sense. So instead of swimming in the mystery of it all, I slowly, cleared away the muck, and things became clearer in my mind, in my spirit, and then following in my body. It's still a journey. I'm still processing, and I know it's not going to be like that, but I can feel myself moving in the right direction. Well, not to say that I don't have some, slide backs and doubts every now and then, because I'm surrounded in a sea of, old paradigm thinking. So it's easy to slip back. So this is how I came to Connecting You to You. And it really took my fear, and it, like a light switch, I had this little paradigm shift that went, oh yes, I get this. And when I had my 6-month return appointment, that was back at Oasis of Hope, and I was telling people about you. I go, I didn't know how to label you, because I just called her my health coach, counselor, health coach that I'm working with. And she does this thing with German New Medicine, and I start talking about it. And I'm telling you, it started spreading like wildfire through this cancer hospital, and everyone starts talking about it. And I even told one of the doctors there about it, and she was interested in looking into it. So she wrote it down. But yeah, it's been transformative for me. It really has moved me in the direction of healing and not being so scared anymore.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
That's such a great story. I love it that I hear that a lot, when people say, I was asking to be guided and then you showed up on my feed.
Mhm.
Like this is how the universe works. When we're open, when the student is ready, the teacher will come and vice versa, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And when we start to understand how the universe actually works, how energy works, you were talking about the diksha, the blessings and the energy. We are never taught about how energy actually works, and everything is energy. And when we get the energies aligned, the miracles happen, because they're not miracles at all. They're just simply alignments of
Mhm.
energy. And when we start to understand that, and we start to understand when the energy in the body stops flowing, when we're in fear and doubt and guilt and shame and blame, the energy stops flowing. And then the energy gets distorted and it's not in alignment anymore. So then the body distorts in direct proportion to the out of alignment energies. And it's really clear, like I could ask you those questions, are you right-handed or, left side and all, just because when you know how the energy works, like it's just really clear. It's very obvious.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
beautiful. I'm so glad, and I'm so glad that we have come together, because you've grown like tremendously throughout this process. You're really coming back into your own, and you're getting really, really bright and clear energetically and confident.
Mhm.
Beautiful to see your transformation.
Yeah, I feel like it was a calling back of my spirit. Um, because I know what it's like to be in alignment. I've experienced it, but I fell out, and I fell out of alignment. Well, I know why I fell out of alignment now. That became very clear. The world kind of threw me into chaos, which it did for everybody, as we all know how the world is. We're in the twilight zone, Looney Tune bin. But yeah, and so I think I got caught up in it. On a macro and micro level, and it threw me off. And yeah, it my cell tissue just reflected that.
Yeah.
So indeed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's thrown many, many, many people off for the last few years. It's been quite the ride for certain.
Yeah.
So, Catherine, how about let's welcome
Yeah,
you to the show, and let's
thank
ask
you.
you,
Yeah,
where did you come from? How did you find me? And why did you reach out?
I'm going to get to that. But what Nadine said just now resonated with me about she knows why she got out of alignment. And I too, the same reason she got out of alignment is the same reason I got out of alignment.
Mm.
It's this COVID thing, the 2020 lockdown. My mother was actually murdered in a London hospital. I pleaded with the doctors not to do it.
Uh,
No.
Hmm.
Okay, I shouldn't have gone there.
That's okay. You know
no,
what?
no.
There is no shouldn't have. Everything comes out for a reason, because, these types of things need to be spoken of, because the, you know, and the tears, that's the healing part. This is when you can speak about these things that are so traumatic to us. When we speak them and we cry them out and we share them with others, that's how we start to unburden ourselves. That's how we start to neutralize these things, and we start to bring peace to ourselves. So no apology necessary. And we are all on your side with this. Whoever's listening to this right now is listening because they're all of the same mindset. And we're starting to see that the medical model is not necessarily our friend. And we're starting to see that there are many, many, many atrocities that are happening. And they need to be brought to the surface because people need to see what's actually happening, because we have all been taught that doctor knows best. And we have all been taught to trust the doctors. They're the experts. They're the only ones that know anything about making us better. And what we're starting to realize is that they may have a lot of knowledge, but they don't always have a lot of wisdom. And there's a vast difference. And we're starting to see that so much of the medical model is simply driven by money.
Yes.
And money does not make the world go round. It literally makes the world stop in its tracks. And so we're right here with you, giving you a big hug and sending many blessings to your beautiful mom, because she is right here shining her light. Like we can feel her I can feel her presence, right? Like woof, all the hair on my head is like standing up. It's like your mom is sitting right here going, yeah, go tell the story.
Yeah, and yes, they just had to. The doctor told me her name is. I spoke with two doctors. One, Dr. Dosh, and the other one, Dr. Said or something like that. I have all the names written down, but it doesn't matter. And I was powerless to do anything to help my mother. If I was in England, or if I could have got to England, I would have been able to get her out of the hospital. I'm sure of that. Other than that, I would have been in jail. But yeah. And I had people lined up to help me, but the lockdown happened. I could not move. I could not get out. And I was so helpless. And I think it all started with that feeling of worthlessness, helplessness, just a place where it's like, what? Really? You're going to put my mother down like a dog? Mm-hmm. She's not sick or anything because she's 88 years old. Is really why you want to do that? Well, she's got COVID. I said, based on what? Based on a PCR that we know does not work. And I was so angry, and that anger stayed with me. And a few days later, of course, my mother died because she was given that drug. And yeah. And then I was in lockdown. I was isolated from everyone. Chris wasn't in Kuwait with me. I was alone. My neighbors were frightened of speaking to anyone. I didn't bother anyone. So I just stayed by myself the whole time with my grief, you know. It was not, I hardly spoke with anyone, only my siblings during that time. Yeah, and of course, Chris. Anyway, so how did I get to Lisa? And then there were other things that happened, you know the story, but this was really the start, and I don't want to take up the time talking about my stories, but yeah. And then how did I get to you? Again, I was browsing. I was looking for information, not for myself, actually, when I first came across you. I was looking for information for my cousin. And I saw this thing about the simplicity of self-healing, and what? And Lisa, who is this person? So I clicked and I listened to your interview. You were talking with a woman about the woman who is doing block therapy.
Ah, yes. Fiona Hansen.
Yes. And I thought, I have got to find this woman. The first thing I did right there and then, I ordered your book. And then in the interview, I heard that you were giving a course. So I clicked immediately. I ordered the book. The book hasn't arrived. I ordered the book like 5 minutes before, and then I clicked on your page, and I was looking to get this, you know, the consultation. but it wouldn't give me, because I didn't have the correct phone number, it wouldn't put me on the list. It kicked me out.
Yeah,
So,
the European phone numbers sometimes don't work. And that's
so I sent you a message to say, okay, I'm looking for a consultation, but, and then when I spoke with you, you asked me, well, what do you want from me? Do you remember asking me that? You
yeah.
said, what do you want from me? And I thought, well, I want the essence of you. I
Mm.
didn't say that though, but that's that, and it sounded like sucking things out of you, but that was not my intention. It is this thing that we were talking about. I want to know what gave you the wisdom, what gave you the strength, the power to do what you did. I mean, reading your book is one thing, but having the experience of you, for me, was priceless. And so I wanted to get some of that essence, some of that thing that made you so strong, that made you with nothing say, well, this is what I'm going to do. And yeah, so that's how I got to you. And then not long after that, I got my stomach, my abdomen became distended, and sorry, my nose is running. My abdomen became distended, and I was like, what is this? And I did a sea flush and I did everything. And then it turned out it is something called ascites. Well, I showed my friend, a doctor friend of ours. I just lifted my shirt and said, look what's happened to my belly. And he said, oh, you're constipated. And I said, well, I can't be because I've just done a sea flush, but he didn't understand what I meant. And then he went on and on and on. And then that I was constipated. I'm like, no. Anyway, but he didn't know anything about my lifestyle. And yes, and so he said, come to the office and I'll do an ultrasound for you. So I went to his office, but he didn't do the ultrasound. He sent me to a center, so some kind of collection place where people go to have x-rays and ultrasound and other things, MRIs and things like that done. And so I went to this place. It was like horrible. I hadn't been in one of these places for years and years and years. I felt like a fish out of water. But anyway, I went in and I had this procedure done, the ultrasound. And the guy who did the ultrasound was asking me, how long have you had this thing? I said, well, it's not long. It's only just started. I don't know what this is and blah, blah, blah. And then I asked him many questions. What do you see? He said, oh, I can't see very much because there's too much water or fluid in your abdomen. Okay. And the next thing I knew, a few days later, I was sitting here right at this very spot, and I was having my supper when the phone rang. And this doctor friend of mine said, Catherine, news is not good. You have cancer. You have cancer of they probably started in the ovaries, probably, he said. And I'm listening to his words. Probably started in the ovaries and has moved to your liver. And you have a tumor that is 3 centimeters big, and it's blah, 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 blah. And you have cirrhosis of the liver, and you have this, and you have that. And I'm like, as I'm listening to him, some part of me was going, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. like, okay. And I, you know what? I continue to eat my dinner. It didn't put me off my dinner. That was a good sign. And I was like,
congratulations.
I was chewing on, yeah, okay. He didn't know that I had Lisa already in my pocket. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh, you must come in. We need to find out. And then he said, we must come in. We need to find out what is wrong. And I said, I thought you already knew. You've told me all of these things. And now you need to find out. Oh, well, yeah, we need you to do an MRI. No, first we need you to do a CT scan. I said, forget that one right there. I'm not doing it. And then he said, okay, then if you don't want to do a CT scan because of the radiation, maybe you could do an MRI. And I'm thinking, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. With the MRI, I still have to take that contrast fluid, which is also a heavy metal or whatever heavy metals there are. I don't know, but because I haven't had reason to look into them really deeply. And so I thought, no, not doing that. I didn't say no to the MRI. I didn't say anything to him. And then he started calling me and calling me and calling me. And then I stopped answering the phone to him, about the MRI. And then he sent me a message with only the one word, MRI, ? I didn't reply at all. And a few days later, he called me. And he said, then he sent another message saying, now for free. And I thought, what does that mean? And I still haven't done it because I don't think I should be. If my body's out of balance already, it doesn't make sense. Makes no sense to add radioactivity and heavy metal, however small in quantity, into a body that is trying to get back to balance. So I'm not doing that. The body knows what it's doing. If it created it without my knowing, because I was unconscious, now with my awareness, I will get it back. Mm-hmm. And so, and then your book arrived and I started reading it. And at first, when I got your book, because again, I have so much knowledge, I decided, no, I'm not going to read everything. I'm just going to start with the things that look interesting to me. So first I went to your story, and then Kathy's story, and then I started doing, and then something said to me, why don't you read this thing from the start and get the whole picture? And then I started reading it properly. Yes. And there are some bits of the book that really, really shifted me into another plane completely. And of course, there are lots of different places. I don't know if I can. Do we have time for me to talk about this? Or?
Sure, whatever we want to talk about.
And there were lots of things. For example, I like the what you said on page 36, pages 36 and 37. See, I have highlighted and what I've done there. And yes, it's about shutting off your awareness automatically. And I that happened in that 2020 thing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know that was going to have such an impact on me because I've lived a wonderful life. I know what's what, Mm-hmm. I eat well. And then on page 56, I realized that all of this has happened to me, this 2020 thing that has caused this in my body now, was a pivotal experience that is going to set me free. It says that in your book. They're not my words, they're your words. And I wrote next to that, from the chains of limitation. For example, the chains of limitation set by so many things, set by types of diet, exercise regimes, hospital visits, superfoods, educational systems, and all of the other things that limit our beliefs. All of the other limiting beliefs that we have. They distract us from our true nature.
Exactly. We've been taught so many limiting beliefs. Yes. as we come into these bodies, we are souls first and foremost, created mm-hmm. in divine perfection, and we have access to universal wisdom, each and every one of us. But when we come into these physical bodies and into this society that we live in, the society has taught us these beliefs that we're limited, that there are rules that we have to follow. And the majority of these rules that we have to follow and the things that we have been taught to believe are true, it's really actually not true when we start to really take a look. And just like, I think you were talking about this too, Nadine, about, starting to realize that a lot of the things that we have learned are not really true.
Yes.
It's actually shocking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nadine, I had a question for you when you were speaking, but I didn't want to interrupt. I actually wanted to interrupt, but I didn't. You said after you'd been in the hospital in the Oasis of Hope, you felt when you were in the hospital it was okay, and then you left, and then you felt awful. I think that was the word you used. You felt awful afterwards. Do you know why that was?
Apparently that's not uncommon when you go there. It could be a flushing process or a purging process, like in German New Medicine, how the symptoms, the dark goo or whatever you want to call it, starts really coming up and out. And there they do what's called a dendritic cell therapy and what's called a lymphocyte activated killer cell vaccine they do there, where they take your blood and then they program it to go and hunt down cancer cells and go get them. And and apparently they have 3 times the success rate. They're oncologists there, and so, but they're integrative and they go as natural as they possibly can. But they have 3 times the success rate of conventional model. So, and 90% of the people there are like stage 4. So a lot of times people show up there and they're like, this is their last hope. So that was very common. But when my daughter went with me, she called the place. It was funny. She termed it adult cancer camp because everybody was so positive and I'm going to do better. And this is, it's really, it becomes this mindset. And, they do a lot of amazing things there every day at 10 a.m. for like people, particularly if you are of a Christian background, they have devotion, every day at 10 a.m. And people, we would join a circle, hold hands and do praise and singing, and you could feel the energy shift. It's like Christ consciousness, it entered that field in that room and you could feel it, or at least I could. And, to me, love is love. Positive energy is positive energy. And of course, I was raised Christian, but, I do practice Eastern stuff too. So just because it resonates with my multinational background, my parents are in interracial marriage. So, yeah. So I'm sorry, I got off topic. Where were we?
I get it. And one thing I want to add also about Lisa is that I like that I have access to you in the sense that when I'm feeling crappy, I can shoot you a message to say, hey, I'm feeling, XYZ. And then you are so so nurturing, and you say to me, okay, how about we talk tomorrow at this time, just like that, where some people who've written books and who have done what you have done, they make themselves unavailable. They're very difficult to get in touch with, and if you want to speak to them, you only speak to them at this time, and they are also following some kind of model which is not I wouldn't say completely sympathetic, but Lisa, you're completely different. You are available. That touched me really, that because actually at the time I didn't know it, but I felt something and I thought, I'm going to just send Lisa a message. And I just did that. And then you came back and said, let's talk. Let's talk about this. And you know what? You recorded that meeting that I had with you and you sent it to me. And it was more than 2 hours of your time
Mhm.
just trying to get me back into a feel-good place.
Yeah. Well, it's really important to me that whoever is working with me really gets the results that they want. It is a mind shift. And when we're feeling crappy, when we're feeling depressed, it's our human nature to go within and try to figure it out and try to see if we can figure out why we're doing this, what's wrong with me. And instead, this is the time that we need to reach out to find somebody who can just simply pull us out with just a simple mind shift.
Yes.
So much of this is why I call my book The Simplicity of Self-Healing, because everything ultimately is incredibly simple. It's just simple shifts of perception. But so many people, they don't want to shift a belief because they think that, oh no, if I change my belief, it means that I've been wrong this whole time, which is not true at all. It's just we have all been programmed in so many different ways. And, we, as we were saying earlier, the soul is the solution. We are the soul, first and foremost. And as the soul, there is nothing wrong with us ever. But when we come into this world, we forget our powers. We forget that we are infinite beings. We forget that there's nothing in physicalness that can harm us who are non-physical beings. And we simply get overwhelmed by the horrors of this world. We look out and we see that there are massive horrors being perpetrated on humanity. And then we think that that's just the way it is and the way that it has to be. And we have to try to just fit ourselves into a dysfunctional world. And trying to fit ourselves into a dysfunctional world is the cause of all disease, period. We are not supposed to fit into a dysfunctional world. We are here to shine our light and raise up out of the dysfunctional world, but we have all been programmed into the dysfunction.
Yes.
And that this is the way it is, and that there's something wrong with your body every time you have an ache or a pain or a hurt or a distension or a tumor or anything like that. We've been taught this is bad. You're going to need to battle this. You need to kill those cells. You need to fight this. And it's simply not true, as we are all now starting to discover. This is I'm glad that, Nadine, you had such a great experience at the Oasis of Hope. And I'm so glad that there are places that are open-minded in that respect. And, there's still that, they're still trying to kill off these cancer cells.
Right.
Unfortunately, those cancer cells are our own cells. They are the cells that our body has created on purpose. They're there for a reason. They're serving a purpose. But we have simply been placed in the mindset that we're being attacked, and that big pharma has the weapons to attack these things. And then it goes back to, it's all about the money. It's not about, are we actually helping? Are we actually healing? Are we actually facilitating the environment where the body will heal itself? Are we actually bringing body, mind, and soul back into alignment? Or are we simply instilling more fear? Because what happened, Nadine, you described it really nicely when you got your diagnosis and what happened to your mindset. All of a sudden, there you were in sheer panic.
Yeah, it was.
Right? So yeah. There's like a whole nother, oh no, that simply traumatizes us. And every single time we have a trauma, we go into fight or flight. And then the body starts responding. The body goes, uh-oh, I better help her out. So let me readjust myself to help you through this crisis. I don't know what the crisis is, but if it's a crisis about you're not good enough, well, the bones and joints are going to respond to that. If it's a crisis of, oh no, I think I'm going to die, well, the lungs are going to respond to that. If it's a crisis of, I'm super angry, well, the liver's going to respond to that. Every part of the body is responding to all of these different traumas that we have. And our bodies are simply trying to help us through these traumas. And when we start to really understand why the body does what it does, we don't have to be traumatized by these diagnoses, I love this contrast, because then, Catherine, you've been working with me for a little bit. So you kind of were already in the mindset. You started and you already understood what was going on. So when the doctor called you with this really horrible diagnosis, you were like, wow, that's very interesting. Thank you for the information, which is exactly the space where we need to be, because that's a space of empowerment. It's the space where we don't go into fight or flight. It's where we stay in our full presence and we can be in our wisdom. Because when we're in the fight or flight, we're simply relying on somebody else's knowledge to get us through whatever the trauma is.
Yes.
So I love this little conversation to show what the contrast is.
When I contacted you, it really wasn't that anything was the matter with me as such. I was looking for information for somebody else. And you see, I was willing to go out for somebody else, and I was already in a good place when this hit me. It was like, what? Me too?
Yeah. So look at how when we're in alignment, the universe simply gives us everything that we need. And what happens is the answer comes before the question is even asked. This is a beautiful testament to that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
When we start to really open up and realize that we are the soul, and we start to realize that as the soul, we are completely unlimited. We live in a universe of infinite possibilities, and we can choose from any of them. But here on this planet, we're told it's either this or that. You have choices, this or that.
Right.
Like, that's not true. We have a bazillion different choices. And when we start to really, truly understand that we are completely and totally unlimited, and that there is nothing wrong with us, and when we start to learn how to follow our own inner guidance, the universe literally rearranges itself for us. The universe is always on our side. So I love that, Catherine, that the universe already had all of your answers lined up for you.
Yeah. And you see, I didn't know that. I only know it now that you've said it, because I wasn't, before you ask, I shall answer. There you go.
Mm.
Yeah. I didn't get it, you had to point it out to me, like the many other things that you actually pointed out to me. For example, in your last seminar that you were at, and you were talking about something, I realized then that I had some shame about, having lived such a clean and whatever life, and then this happened to me. This distension of the abdomen happened to me. It's like, oh, how could that happen to me? But then when I listened to you, I realized that there was some shame attached to it. which I didn't recognize before. And sometimes it's only when we listen to other people or when we ask questions. And that is really also, Nadine, why I ask you lots of questions. I'm always milking you for something. And, because I really, really, really love to draw from your wisdom. Because if you have done it, Lisa's done it, you've done it, why shouldn't I be able to do it? We all are in this energy soup, if you like. And I can draw the same energy, but I like to have your wisdom as a sort of as a guide, something to help me through. And for that, I'm really very grateful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I feel for myself too. I'm like, I'm on that road of, I guess, lack of a better term, unlearning. It's really, that's what I feel. This whole process feels like an unlearning of what just isn't. And that sometimes it's a hill, it's a climb, because there's this cognitive dissonance that occurs, trying to hold, we hear cognitive dissonance, trying to hold two different viewpoints that oppose each other. You can't do it. It's very difficult. But it's all around us. But when you go within, that's when I think the clarity shows up. And it's I love, Lisa, when you're working with us, when we finish with the meditation. It just makes everything right as rain. So it sets a barometer of the mind and its connection to the body in the right direction. And you're like, okay, can I just hold on to this for the rest of the week?
That's very true, because if you remember, Lisa, the last session we had, I asked for it pretty quickly. Actually, you'd said something and I thought, I've got to hold on to this. And I was like, can we have the meditation now? I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
I did. Yeah. Have it now, because I like the tools. I like the like on your logo, Lisa, the glow. I like that. Yes. Yeah, I like it very much.
Yeah. They're very simple tools, but very powerful. Really the whole focus of the work is to help us remember who we actually are, and the brilliance of these bodies and the brilliance of ourselves, to help us turn our light back on, because we are beings of light first and foremost. And here on this planet of polarity, of these opposing, diametrically opposite points of view, that it starts when we start to choose the opposite point of view from the point of view that our soul takes. It starts to turn the dimmer switch down. Our light starts to dim. We start to forget who we are. And then we're operating just from the mind and not from the soul, not from the heart. And then we operate by trying to figure it all out and follow all the rules. And then we think that if we follow all the rules and we do the right thing, that everything will be fine. But unfortunately, doing the right thing and following other people's rules really leads us right down the path of destruction, because they're not the rules of our soul. They're not the universal rules. There are no rules. The universe has no rules other than do no harm. Do no harm. If you do harm, make reparation. Like, it's really that simple. But here on this planet, there's a rule for this and a rule for that, and do this and don't do that. And it just puts us in this terrible little box. It isolates us. It makes us feel small. It makes us feel powerless. And then it makes us rely on other people who we have been told are the experts, whether it's doctors, lawyers, teachers, preachers. They're experts, these middlemen You know, the preacher that comes between us and God, the doctors that come between us and our bodies, the lawyers that come between us and universal law, the educational system that comes between us and universal wisdom, universal knowledge. It's like when we cut out the middlemen and we start to tune in, all the answers are right inside. We are connected, part of, interconnected with source itself. Ultimately, that is who and what we are. And we learn to get quiet and tune in. The answer comes before the question is asked. The answer lies right where the question is asked. But we're just taught to ask the question, what's wrong with me? And they'll go running off somewhere else to find the answer. And the universe always answers our every question. And when we ask that question, we find out all the answers about what's wrong with us. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not old enough. You're not young enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not tall. And we really don't want any of those answers because none of them are true.
Yeah.
I love that. So if you were to give someone, if someone asked you about taking the course or working with me, what would you say to them? Catherine, what would you say? What advice would you give, or insight and wisdom would you share?
Well, I think I've already stated it, but I'll say it again. It would be one, the wisdom that I get from, it's not only knowledge, it's that thing about your soul. Yes, about your soul having all the answers already, and your soul being perfect already, and you really don't have to be running helter-skelter everywhere looking for that. That is really an anchor. And that was what made me eat my dinner when somebody was telling me that I had cancer that has spread from my uterus or my ovaries to wherever. It was like, okay, that sounds okay. I just got on with it. And I didn't even mention it to anyone. I was like, that's weird. But because I already had you, so it didn't give me the shock that somebody else would have had. So I want to say to people that do not wait until you have a reason to do this. And it was just so that I was lucky, or maybe I created it, I don't know what, but I had the universe put it in place for me. Yeah. I had the good fortune of having had you with me before that happened. So so I'll say to anyone, do this even if you're well. Do this even if you're well, because you really need to get away from all the BS and all the conditioning in our world, because the insidious nature of conditioning will get you. It will get you. Because even I, and Nadine, you too, because you've been meditating, you've been doing everything right, eating right, etc., etc. And then 2020 happened. It happened to you. It happened to me. And we've both been doing things right. So imagine if we hadn't been, and it's I think it's, for me, what I would say is, even if there's nothing the matter with anyone, or you haven't had a diagnosis, just for your knowledge and peace of mind, and to bring you back to your soul, this course is good enough for that. You have to come back to your soul, because I bet you any money, if I was with my soul, probably I would have handled the incident with my mother differently. I wouldn't have gone to anger. I wouldn't have gone to frustration. And it was there for a long time. And, and sometimes when I think about it, and I go back to that first day, what I was thinking, it's also raw, because I wasn't, I didn't have I don't think I was standing in my power then, no.
Yeah. I love that. I love that insight, because it is far easier to learn something before you're in a crisis situation. It's very difficult. It's much more difficult to learn when you're in a crisis situation. And we can avoid many, many traumas, many, many future crises by learning this information about how our bodies actually work and by getting back into our soul. I love that. Nadine, what would you have to say to somebody that was inquiring?
Well, for most people that would probably come your way, they're probably in a crisis mode at that point. And for me, of course, I had a lot of doubt. I'm like, well, what if, I do this course and I do all the things, and I check off all the boxes, I'm a box checker, and still it doesn't work. I do it all, well, then what? Because that's the way the old squirrel cage goes in here. And however, there was also this point where I became very, very still. And I called a meeting with the divine, with God, and I said, okay, tell me, like how you always say, what is it that I need to know? You use that term. And so I'm okay, what is it that I need to know here? And I'm quiet enough. And what came to me is, Nadine, you're on a crossroads. You have free will here. You can choose. You can exit the planet now if you want to. You're there. You can exit. Or you can choose to live. The choice is yours. This way, nothing wrong with it if you want to exit the planet. By all means, your kids are in their 20s, they're grown now. So, okay. Or you can choose. I'm thinking, I want to stay. I want to stay. I've got a lot of living to do. I want to reach an old age and I want to thrive. I want to come out of this thing stronger than I was before. So, not only just mentally or spiritually, but I wanted my physical body, this vehicle that I'm inhabiting, to be stronger and, more flexible. I have no doubt I'm going to get there. And I feel that the course, the way it's laid out, and when you do the work, you do the journaling, you do the work, you meditate and answer the questions, and you really dive in, it works. It just works. It's like universal law. Cause effect. What do you know? So the whole thing about how I was, my programming of doubt, like, what if I did it and it still fails? It won't if you do the work. If you don't, well, yeah, maybe. So of course, there's no guarantees, because we don't know how our egos are going to be involved in the process. But I know that going on this journey has been transformative. It's been transformative. And I've transformed in other ways too in the past, but this has righted my spirit. It's made me feel, okay, I got this. I got this. I don't have to be living with stage 4 cancer, bye, see ya. So yeah, if somebody's in that place or somewhere similar, go for it. It's your health. It's your health your sense of well-being, sense of peace, sense of alignment, it's worth the investment for your heart and soul, and your body. But yeah, to me, it was well worth it. And I'm not done. It's still, I have a journey to go, but I can tell I'm there. So I thank you, Lisa.
You are so welcome, Nadine. I'm
Mhm.
so glad that and it's been such an honor to watch you transform. It's amazing. I love it. It's like the lotus flower opening up and just seeing the light start shining again. And,
It's
you know, yes, exactly. Yes, it's beautiful to see everybody start to really step into their soul, to become whole again and empowered again and happy and light and bright again. Each one of us starts to turn our light back on, by clearing out all of that programming that has made us feel small, has made us feel victimized, has made us feel limited in any way. As we start to turn our light back on and realize that none of that is our stuff. It's all stuff that's been programmed into us, that we can really, truly just simply bring ourselves back into alignment with our soul. We can start to really tune in to our own inner guidance, because the body is the direct pathway to the soul. The body is letting us know in every second of every day if we are in alignment or if we're not. If something feels constricting, contractive, if it feels heavy, if it doesn't feel right, it's the body saying no. It's the body saying you're not on the right path. And when things feel in alignment, when we just know, when we feel that good feeling inside, when we feel the freedom, the no resistance, that's the body going, yeah, you're in alignment. Stay this course. And when we learn to trust that and tune into that, the body will never steer us wrong, and it'll steer us right back into our soul. I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much for joining me this morning. This has been such a beautiful conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and have this conversation and just kind of give people a glimpse into what it's like and what kinds of things we talk about and the transformation that you've received.
Well, thank you. And I hope it reaches people and that they there are answers. There are answers out there if you're for people who are feeling really down about this whole thing. And if you've been diagnosed with some sort of terrible thing, it's like I very much would recommend your program. It's been very helpful. Yeah. And it's been a fun conversation. It's good. Yeah.
We always have fun, don't we?
Yeah.
We're always laughing.
Yeah. To be laughing and enjoying this when it's supposed to be,
Right? Exactly. It's like really hard to heal when we're feeling really crampy. But
Yeah.
laughter is the best medicine.
It is. It is. Did you see? I'm going to go that the special comedian Jim Brewer's. Someone had to say it. It's so funny. Well, for our generation, right? He goes into different things, but he says the title is "Someone Had to Say It," and it's very funny. I think it's going viral right now on YouTube. But and talking about the past number of years, and he's making fun of it. And so like laughter is the best medicine. So check it out.
Indeed. Because we are blissful beings by nature. We are joyful, glorious, brilliant, fun beings of light by nature. So bliss is our natural state of being. Being happy is natural. Being depressed and suicidal and fearful and angry is not our nature. That's why they don't feel good in the body.
Yeah. I can't wait till seeing the planet start having fun again.
Exactly, right?
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Setting
And that's
everybody free.
I think we all need to explore, particularly as adults and children too these days, particularly teens. It's like having fun.
Exactly.
We're not playing anymore. We're not having fun, and
Yep.
so
Precisely.
gotta have
I
fun.
am with you. Woo,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Catherine, thank you so much for joining us from beautiful Austria today. We really appreciate it.
you.
All right.
Thank you,
Okay.
Nadine.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. Okay.
All right. So thank you all for joining us for another Solution Sunday. I'm Lisa Warner. I am the creator of Aligning with Your Radiantly Healthy Self, where we start to clear out the programming that we have all received and to start to learn how our bodies actually function and learn about the well-being that is right here, right now for each and every one of us when we simply bring ourselves back into alignment and step back into the soul and start to realize that we are fully empowered and that all answers come from within and that we can actually cut out the middlemen and actually heal ourselves. So it's very, very helpful to have this knowledge so that if you do work with a doctor, they work for you and that you are always the director of your own healing.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
thank you both so much for joining us. And if anybody is interested that's watching this in taking the course or wanting to have a consultation, please feel free to reach out to me through connectingyoutoyou.com. And my book, The Simplicity of Self-Healing, is available on Amazon. So thank you both for a beautiful conversation today. We'll see you in class next week. And until then, everyone, create for yourselves a beautiful week.
Yes.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.